Good morning, everybody. I want to make sure the audio is good, the picture is good, so if you can give some feedback in the chat, I would appreciate that. Please make sure to read the risk disclaimer as well before we get started. Good morning, AV. Just want to make sure everything's good, so if you guys can give some feedback, make sure the picture is good, audio is good. Good morning, good morning. All right, so it looks like everything's good so far. Just want to wait for a few more people, a couple of confirmations. Like I said, please read the risk disclaimer. All right, so it looks like everything's going well. Everything's good. Give this a few more moments. Read over this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and delete this real quick. So I'm having a look at ES this morning. We do have a news event driver about 20 minutes from now. And I'm going to wait and see what that provides for us. We do have a bank holiday today, but I do suspect we're going to have some volatility, as you already seen. So we're going to wait and see what plays out. In these type of conditions, when you have a news event driver that is 30 minutes after the open, typically I'm waiting for that to play out and not looking to enter into the market before then. And typically that's due to the fact that there's going to be manipulation that happens before the open. I'd rather not be inside of the market before that news event driver releases. We do have FOMC this week. We have NFP this week. And even today being a bank holiday, there's a lot of conditions this week that you have to be very careful. I talked about yesterday how when you have FOMC or even NFP, which this week they're both stacked on top of each other, it provides a condition that can be problematic. So usually the day before FOMC, it can be very manipulated, meaning that it's not as precise. Price is not as fluid. So you have to be very careful, especially with NFP. ICT talks about this, how you need to be very careful on the Thursday or Wednesday beforehand. And you typically shouldn't even be trading that. And you shouldn't even be trading NFP in itself. So again, take advice from people who have experience, who've gone through the trials and errors, and you don't have to suffer the pain that everybody else has already gone through. Just listen to the advice. So what I do want to bring up is the dollar index. And let me just double check. I want to make sure everything's good. All right. I'm not going to be looking at the chat that much. If you're asking questions, I'm really focused on price. I'm only going to be looking at it just to make sure that the audio is good or the picture's good. If anything ever goes out at any point in time, please let me know, because I'm going to be mainly focused on the charts. I'm not going to be really looking at the chat. So if I don't get to your questions or something like that, just understand that I'm just paying attention to price right now. We left off on Friday with the dollar index, and even yesterday with the weekly forecast. I'm suspecting lower prices in dollar. I'm suspecting higher prices in ES. So we can see that already from the open. We're getting higher prices in ES and lower prices in dollar. And if you look at the daily time frame on dollar, we returned into that bearish order block. And if you look a little bit closer, if you take the CE of this wick here, returned into that, and since then been displacing away from it. And if you go down into a 4-hour time frame, I talked about this yesterday in the weekly forecast. This bearish order block in here, I wanted to see the mean threshold be respected. We climbed up a little bit above it, but that's all right. We since then been displacing away from it. The 1-hour time frame, take this away for a second, returned into a premium. So relative from that dealing range high down to the dealing range low, returned into a premium, displacing away from it. I want to see if we can continue to see lower prices. And the reason why I'm using dollar index, if you guys don't know, is intermarket relationships, right? We want to be able to see if the dollar is going lower, then that should support ES, NQ, Dow. All of those should be printing higher prices. Same thing with EU, GU. Those should be printing higher prices if the dollar is going lower. And you utilize this as confluence in your analysis, and it gives you just a better overall confluence, right? So if we take a look at ES here, I'm going to actually full screen this. And I want to go out to a daily time frame. Make sure to delete that. So I talked about how 4198.50, that is our draw on liquidity, at least for the beginning of the week. We'll see if we can print higher prices into 42.46. And this morning, right off the open, we're displacing higher. 1 hour time frame. We came down. I wanted to see if we could take out this low here at 41.81, which we didn't. We did take out sell side liquidity underneath that low there. I'm paying attention to NQ and Dow right now. It seems a little decoupled. NQ's not printing higher. Dow is printing higher, a higher high, and ES has not printed that higher high yet. So I know there's a lot of volatility right now, and it may feel like you're missing out on something. But to me, on a Monday morning where we have a FOMC, we have NFP, we have a news event driver, or we have news event driver 30 minutes after the open. To me, there's going to be a lot of manipulation. So I'm going to wait, let time do the work for you. I talked about this on the live stream on Friday, how if you just let time do the work for you, it's going to create higher probabilities for you. So I'm going to see if we can attack the buy side liquidity resting here at 41.98. After that, I'm curious to see if we see a displacement lower, because now we have relative equal lows in here resting at 41.81. So do we just continue higher, or do we just take out buy side and then displace lower? The news event driver is going to be a tell as to what we're going to do. And I'm really paying attention to NQ right now. Just as far as intermarket relationships, you're going to see me, if you are not accustomed to me or you haven't, been around, I'm using everything at once. I'm using NQ, Dow, I'm using dollar index, I'm looking at forex pairs. I'm gaining more clarity as far as what the market is doing, and it helps me read ES a lot better. You can see here I had the RTH gap. If you don't know what that is, you can toggle this electronic trading hours to regular trading hours. There's going to be a gap in there that you don't see on the electronic trading hours. I had that marked up to see if we could fill that in as a draw on liquidity. We already went ahead and did that. A lot of volatility right off the open. Really nice to see. I'm going to dig down into a 5-minute time frame here. So this low here before the open, before I even started live streaming, I wanted to see if we could take that out. The reason being is because that was kind of our last swing. We had a swing high here, a swing low, and then a higher high. I wanted to see if we could take that out before displacing higher. I believe there's bullish SMT in there. If you look at NQ on the 5-minute time frame, NQ failed to make a lower low. ES made a lower low. Dow made a lower low. So that is a bullish SMT. It's the reason why we're seeing higher prices, which we all suspected right from the weekly forecast. It's not surprising. Do I feel like I'm missing a move? Am I FOMOing? No. It's completely fine to just wait for time to do the work for you. Like I said, I'm curious to see after we take out the buy side liquidity, do we see a displacement lower? So I'm going to toggle over to a 1-minute time frame here. So even though we didn't take out the sell side here at 41.81, we took out sell side liquidity here. displaced higher. We had a shift above this high here, leaving a fair value gap in here, dip down into that, CE of it, and since then displacing away from it. Now, if you're not familiar with at least the way I trade, I have a lot of different models, a lot of different things that I do. I will post more and more about the way I trade, and you'll see throughout the live streams the way I enter into trades. Primarily, I'm entering off of fair value gaps. That's my entry pattern. That's what I like. I talked about this yesterday as well in the weekly forecast. Something I wish somebody told me is you can understand all the PD rays. You can understand order blocks, breakers, mitigation blocks, fair value gaps. But primarily what helped me was only entering off of one PD ray, creating my model that surrounds that one PD array, and having a set rules that surrounds that one PD array on one asset class during one time, right? Because that creates a better high probability model. It lessens the things you have to look for. You're not as confused when you're looking at everything. To me, it's very simple, okay? So we took out sell stops here, displaced higher, shift above that high there, retraced down into that fair value gap, and displaced away from it. I forgot to note as well, I'm looking for 5 handles. Today we're going to see if we can get 5 handles out of the market. I'm going to just be tape reading for the most part, just for the reason that it's a Monday, bank holiday, a lot of different things being thrown at us today. So I'm going to be a lot more cautious as to what I'm looking for today. To note as well, this is our new week opening gap. Came down into that as well. If you followed along yesterday, I'm very OCD about the visibility. So if I'm marking something up on the 1 minute time frame, it stays on the 1 minute time frame. I don't have it carried across. So this is a great example of confluences where you have multiple things layered on top of each other. So you have the new week opening gap, you have the fair value gap in here. Use that to send price higher. Small fair value gap in here. I'd like to see that stay open as a breakaway gap. From here, I'd just like to see price if we can just take out the buy side at 41.98. So that's our draw for right now. Let me toggle back to, let me look at the dollar index here real quick. So not much movement out of the dollar. Jump down to a 5 minute time frame here. So we have a SIBI in here. If ES wants to continue to print higher, then dollar must respect the SIBI and print lower prices into this low here at 101.6. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, is lower prices in dollar, higher prices in ES. NQ's starting to get into sync with ES and Dow. That's a good thing to see. It's lagging a little bit, and like I said, I'm curious to see if we take out the highs here, which we already have with ES. If you look at the high, let me toggle out to a 15-minute time frame. If you look at the high here, we already took that out. If you look at NQ, we haven't taken that out. So there is a bearish SMT right now. I'm not saying to go short. I'm just paying attention to what is printing on the price right now. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have a 1 minute time frame on the left side, and then I'm going to have ES 5 minute or even a 15-minute time frame. Preferably I'm going to have the 5 minute. If you guys don't know, it's not important, but just so you have an idea of the way I trade, or at least the way my setup looks like. I have a main monitor that you're looking at. Then I have a monitor to the right of me that is an SMT chart. Then I have a monitor to the left of me that I'm monitoring either the dollar index or I'm monitoring ES on a different time frame. I only say that just because if I'm not doing something on one of these charts, I'm probably doing something on the other one. FYI. I may play just a little music. Let me know if it's gonna be too much or not. I'm not sure if you guys can hear that or not. So we have about 5 minutes till the news event driver. I'm looking at ES. I'm going to be looking at this fair value gap here. I want to see if it respects the 5 minute to send it into the buy side at 41.98. Like I said, there is bearish SMT. NQ is nowhere near where Dow is and nowhere near ES. So I'm curious to see if we print lower during this news event driver. We're going to have to wait and see. Yeah, that music's a little too loud for me. I'm going to answer a question before the news event driver. What's the difference between MSS and MSB? So a break in market structure is on a higher time frame. That's a macro. That's a more sentiment shift. A shift in structure is just a short-term shift, right? That's on lower time frames where you're just shifting very short-term. It's not a long-term macro view. Pay attention to the 1 minute. Busy in here. 5 minute. This needs to be respected if we're going to take out the buy side at 41.98. Note the sell side liquidity resting at 41.81, the relative equal lows. If you don't hear me talking, it's just me looking at price, so don't worry. Once the event drops, we're going to see what price does. But this fair value gap needs to hold price if we're going to take out the buy side here. Same with this one here. We need to stay above the new week opening gap if we're going to see higher prices. So before this drops, note the sell side, note the bearish SMT, note the 5 minute fair value gap here, and note the 1 minute fair value gap here as well. Note the dollar index 5 minute SIBI that we went over as well. Good morning, Danny. Do I trade before the high impact news? No, that's what I'm annotating here, is that typically if there's a news event driver that's 30 minutes after the open, I'm just going to wait for that to play out. Reason being is price can be very manipulated. I'd rather let time do the work for me. Okay, I'm going to say that a lot. Let time do the work for you. and that's moving into the silver bullet, quote unquote, hour. And you see here how we just waited, because some people probably went long on that fair value gap, probably got stopped out. That's why we wait. Time will do the work for us. Note the 15-minute BISI, and there's actually a bullish breaker in here. So let me maybe do a 5-minute time frame. So we took out sell side here. These last two up close candles are the bullish breaker for us. Dollar printed higher, completely disrespected that SIBI. There is a fair value gap in here on the 5-minute time frame, so we're going to watch and see how it closes, because the bodies tell the story. So if we do end up printing lower, excuse me, we can extend these out in time as potential inversion fair value gaps. Nothing's printing that right now, but if we close underneath the new week opening gap, it could potentially signal that. We go over to a 15-minute time frame here. So this BISI in here, I'm going to see if that respects it. And then this last up close candle, that's our bullish breaker. Dollar's printing higher. NQ printing lower. Dow and ES are sort of in tandem with each other. The fact that the dollar is printing higher, I don't want to long ES right now. So note this SIBI in here, and note this inversion fair value gap. See how it respects that. So you have this inversion, and then the actual SIBI resting here, which I'll make a different color. Okay, so see how price respects this area. Not saying to go short, just watching price. Nothing in here signals me to go long or short. It's only 2 minutes after the event, so just chill. Let time do the work for you. And the reason I'm leaning on, I'm not going to say a bearish bias right now, but we could see lower prices, is dollar is printing higher. We have the bearish SMT. We just took out buy side liquidity, right? Even though we didn't take out 41.98, we took out the high here. So we took out buy side liquidity. We displaced lower, coupled with bearish SMT, coupled with dollar printing higher. So do you see how when you're using other markets and other relationships, you build a better bias rather than me just looking at a fair value gap and going long or short? There's a lot more to it than meets the eye. So I'm paying attention to that BISI in here. NQ made a lower low, but dollars is printing higher. So it's pretty concerning if I'm going to lean on a bullish bias. And what that means is they're either A, decoupled, or dollar's truly bullish, and ES could see lower prices today. To me, if we close underneath this new week opening gap and start moving lower, we're going to see 41.81. And what am I talking about? These are relative equal lows that were made before the open. So we took out buy stops here, right? And then displaced lower, coupled with bearish SMT, coupled with bullish dollar. That's what I'm going to lean on for right now. And what would be evidence for that is seeing this, a displacement. To me, you could look at this as a market maker sell model. And to me, I'm letting the first stage kind of prove itself to me. And if we do see a displacement lower, leaving a fair value gap in here, or something that we can go short off of, then we can go short to target the sell side. Sometimes this is like a premature stage, and I just let it prove itself to me rather than just jumping right into the market, especially right after the news event driver. Makes sense so far, everybody? Following along? Stream's good. Quality's good. Cool, thank you. I really do appreciate when you guys comment, seriously, because I need to know. So if we get a close underneath the new week opening gap, and even underneath that low there, potentially one of these lows here, we're going to be able to carry this out as our inversion fair value gap. Because this once was a BISI, but now we can use that as support if we get a coupled fair value gap within it, just like this one. I'm actually going to make this blue and that one red. I'll leave it white. So I'm going to go out to a little bit higher time frame, try to gain a little bit better perspective. Sometimes when you're watching price, especially live, and there's a lot of volatility, there's a lot of movement, you forget to go out to higher time frames and kind of look at like what's really going on. Okay, so doing what we suspected. To me, I really want to see a close underneath the new week opening gap, and then this act as resistance to send price lower. Dollar, note the buy side resting at 101.957. Resolution is a little bit weird, Danny. Okay, thank you for that. I know this is my first time live streaming, and YouTube is just so difficult using OBS. Like Telegram was so easy and everything came out crystal clear. But OBS is a pain in my butt. Hopefully, at least you can get the overall picture here. So nothing yet. Like I said, it's a Monday. Bank holiday. We have FOMC and FP ahead of us, so just have to be careful. Let time do the work for us. And you can see here how I'm utilizing the new week opening gap. Did we ever get a close underneath it? That's not a closure in a bearish form, so we're utilizing that as support. Utilizing the 15-minute BISI here, bullish breaker in here. NQ does have a bullish SMT as well. So we may want to, if we do close above this fair value gap here, we may want to head up towards 41.98 to target the buy side liquidity. So all we would do is extend out this old SIBI and see if that can act as support. So we came down, we were utilizing this BISI in here as support, new week opening gap as support. The bodies were telling the story in here. Five-minute time frame, utilizing that fair value gap in here in the bullish breaker. So watch this fair value gap in the 1 minute time frame that's forming. So this one right in here. I'm going to see if this fair value gap inversion level now acts as support. So watch this one. We just dug into it. I'm going to take this away just so it's not so cluttered. So we're dipping down into that new week opening gap, inversion level in here, and pay attention on how the body closes. The thing that's problematic for me is the dollar is printing higher, and I don't like that at all. Small volume imbalance in here as well. But we'd want to see this support price going higher if it's truly going to take out the buy side at 41.97 and then 41.98. So the reason why I'm carrying out this inversion level is look at the body closures. It's coloring outside the lines a little bit, but if you look at the bodies, that's really telling the story for me. So we want to see from here, do we get speed away from here? I'm going to check a couple other time frames in here. 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute. Nothing much in here. So 5 minute time frame from the stealing range low to high, drop down into a discount, into this bullish breaker here, and into that BISI. Body's telling the story. 1 minute time frame, use the new week opening gap, use the reclaimed BISI as support, displaced higher, drop down into the fair value gap here, inversion level. We have a bullish SMT. I would really like this if dollar was printing lower prices, but it's really printing higher prices, which really makes me concerned. It's the reason why I'm not entering into this. Sometimes, even though my analysis in my mind, I favor the upside right now, the fact that the dollar is moving higher, it's very problematic for me. I need the dollar to be in sync, meaning that if the dollar was printing lower, I would be more than happy to enter into this right now. But the fact that the dollar is printing higher, it's very problematic for me. I need it to be in sync, which dollar's been very problematic over the last few weeks. It needs to get out of this range that it's been kept in, and it needs to start moving in sync. And it's perfectly okay to miss moves. Even if you have your analysis correct and you miss a move, it's perfectly okay. All you're looking for is 5 handles. You can do 5 handles 3, 4, even 5 times a week. You're doing very, very well in trading. So from here, this needs a support price, and it needs to pick up speed here quickly. I don't want to see it dance around in this area for too much longer if we're truly bullish. So we're seeing that displacement higher from here. And let's just say hypothetically you went long in here. Your stop loss would need to go beneath that low there. You're targeting 5 handles, which is basically already complete. To the buy side there, it's 6.5 handles. Somebody asked if the dollar is going higher, would I still take a bullish trade on ES? I've done it before. It's still very valid, but I prefer to have the highest probabilities and the highest odds in my favor, which is having dollar moving lower while ES is printing higher. So it's very problematic. It's just where you personally, as a trader, you have to make that decision. Watch the fair value gap in here. Might just IOFED it and then move into the buy side. I'm going to take this away. And to me here, it's not really a high probability entry because our target, our draw is here. So I'm always also looking at the risk to reward. I'm framing it. If my objective is only from here, 3 handles, and I would have to risk about 4 handles, it just doesn't make any sense. I need at least, if you're framing a 5 handle setup, you need at least 10. At least be able to see 10. So you can see here, we just IOFED'd it, displaced away from it. I want to see price have speed into that 41.98 level. So the 5-minute is our framework. Drop down into the discount, BISI in here, and then the breaker as well. And the telltale sign that price wasn't going to break off lower, we failed to close underneath the new week opening gap. Where's the SMT you said earlier? I can't find it. If you look at NQ, it made a lower low. I'll just go over to it for a second. This low here. Look at that low there. What is IOFED? That's institutional order flow entry drill. It's where price will quickly dip into a fair value gap 10, 25%. It can even just meet the exact number of the low or the high of the fair value gap that was created and move away from it swiftly. So all of this is not, I mean, yes, there's a couple, good 5-handle runs in here, but like I said, the dollar to me, for me to really like a trade, I need the dollar to be moving in sync. So nothing on those time frames. Going to continue to watch the 1 minute here. So this could have been your AKA silver bullet trade where you're running for 5 handles, but I outlined how dollar index is being problematic. And on Friday, everything was moving very smoothly, and it was something that was very nice because the dollar was moving lower and ES was printing higher. So everything was moving in sync with each other, and you want to see that. And that's kind of the internal wrestling match you will have with yourself between the analyst, between the trader, and between the gambler. And you need to be very aware of which one's in control. And that's where your rules come into play. And following them, and you need to know exactly when you start coloring outside of those rules and those personal things you have set for yourself. So looking at NQ, it's kind of range bound. It did not make that higher high that Dow and ES made. And like I said, the fact that the dollar is printing higher, it eliminates me to really want to go long in this. And it's the reason why we're seeing price just bleed through these BISIs in here. So again, that's where your rules come into play, and you have to listen to the analyst. The analyst is saying dollar's printing higher. It's not in sync. NQ didn't print the higher high, that's bearish SMT, and I annotated how we have relative equal lows down here, and the fact that we took out buy side here and then took it out again there. So it's very problematic for me to want to long this. Hopefully I'm clear on that. Just FYI, if you're asking a lot of questions, I stated this in the beginning, I'm probably not going to be answering a lot. It's too much for me. So I'll get back to it potentially at the end of the live stream. It's too much to watch price and go through comments. So what I would like to see is there's a SIBI in here. And to me, this would need to support price to go lower. So again, if this supports price to go lower and we break underneath the new week opening gap, now we have relative equal lows down here. So we have sell side liquidity resting down here, which would make sense with the dollar printing higher. So this here, just in the breakers on the 5-minute time frame. So for me to really like shorts and see lower prices, we need to break underneath the new week opening gap, meaning we see a closure. So we have relative equal lows down here, and then the sell side resting at 41.81. NASDAQ failed to make the higher high. ES made a higher high. Dow made a higher high as well. So that's a bearish SMT. So you can see here, that's IOFED, institutional for entry drill, seeing a displacement lower. So this becomes an inversion level. The buy side on dollar at 101.955 was taken. To me, it looks pretty darn bullish. So I'm curious to see if dollar this week is going to want to take those relative equal highs, or at least from the beginning of the week. Even looking at that 4-hour time frame on dollar, the bearish order block I mentioned, it's completely disrespecting it. So to me, we'd want to take out the relative equal highs, which would mean what for ES? It would mean lower prices in ES. We did get a closure underneath that new week opening gap. So see if this acts as support and provides evidence that we want to continue lower to attack the sell side in here. Look at the bodies respecting the inversion level in here as well. We have a small imbalance in price in here. So if we drop underneath the sell side, we could look for that to get targeted as well. 5-minute time frame, we're dipping into that BISI in here as well. To me, this is very choppy. This is very, very, very choppy. It's not something that's clearly one-sided. I can make a case for both sides. I could make a case that we could run out the buy side at 41.98. I could also make a case that we could run out the sell side at 41.81, or even the sell side at 41.87. So as the analyst, that's very problematic. You need to be able to clearly identify one side, draw on liquidity, and have clear evidence towards that. Right now, nothing's really clear. We're sitting basically in between the relative equal lows in here and the relative equal highs, and nothing's really providing me enough evidence to want to go long or short. There's bearish SMT on both sides, or bearish SMT and bullish SMT on both sides as well. So something would clearly need to prove itself to me. The only thing that's really clearly identifying itself to me is dollars being bullish, extremely bullish. So to me, I'm leaning on a bearish bias right now, but it doesn't mean to go short. Please don't be going short or long. I'm just reading price right now because nothing's really clear to me. HRC, that's funny that you said that. I didn't even read the chat. I'll get back to all the questions at a later point in time today, okay? And this is how trading is. It's very boring. Sometimes it's not like this, but I suspected something would be like this today. Very, very choppy due to the fact of the economic calendar and today being a bank holiday. So we just have to be careful and just wait for price to prove itself. Let time do the work. You don't have to immediately jump into price and be FOMOing into positions. It's okay to just let price prove itself and just tape read until something is very clear. And not enough people talk about this. I'm not going to go too much on a tangent, but I believe that I'll go into the later portions in the live streams. As we all know, psychology is so huge in trading. I do have a video on my YouTube channel over this. But the book that really helped me is called The Mental Game of Trading by Jared Tindler. That book is fantastic. It breaks down trading psychology better than basically every book that I personally have read over trading psychology. It helped me with a lot of issues that I've dealt with, especially tilt. If you deal with a lot of tilt issues, meaning that being angered, it will really help you. I saw briefly in the chat earlier something about discipline and patience, which is, I get that question a lot. That's simply time and experience and just learning through so many lessons and getting burnt and taking a lot of losses If you keep putting your hand on that hot stove over and over and over again, eventually you're going to learn. Eventually you're going to learn not to do certain things. And regardless, you're never going to be perfect. And I know that's said a lot, but you have to really forge that in your mind as a trader that, you know, your entire career, you will take losses, you will make mistakes. But if you do proper money management, meaning that on your regular position, if I was to enter in today, let's say my regular position is 2 contracts just for the sake of it. If I enter into a position and I take a loss, my personal rule set is I have 2 trades max a day. I have a regular standard position, let's say 2 contracts. If I take a loss, I reduce my risk to half, so I move it back to 1 contract, and then I'm aiming to make back half of my loss. And once I do that, then I'm done for the day. If I lose again, then I'm done for the day. There's no reason to trade more than, in my opinion, 2 times in a day. To me, that's where things get really problematic, and you're inducing a lot more emotions, and those will become accumulated over time, meaning that those emotions will lash out worse and worse if you let them accumulate. And that can happen over periods of weeks and months. So if you find yourself out of nowhere tilting, like aggressively, that's called accumulated tilt, where there's a lot of things that have been building up, not just in that day, not just in that week. It could be months, it could be years, depending on how long you've been trading. So you need to go back and kind of resolve those issues that you're having in your mental game. All of this is a mental battle, all of it. It's a direct reflection of yourself. And it'll make you pay for it if you're not careful. So we're seeing a break lower. To me, it's a very high resistance liquidity run. We're just basically stalling inside of fair value gaps, moving higher, then moving lower. And we're just stuck in between a range, like I said. To me, it's very low probability. I don't want to enter into anything. There's nothing in here that would signal me to go long or short. I'm curious to see if NQ is going to be the leader and ES and Dow are lagging behind it, and eventually it will follow it. Dollar's printing higher still, so there's just really nothing in here. I'd watch the tail end of this wick here on the 5-minute time frame. So just this portion here, and see if this respects price to move lower. That's your bearish order block. So even on the 15-minute time frame on ES, we're still inside of that BISI. We're still inside of this breaker, even on the 5-minute time frame. It's just very problematic if you haven't noticed. And it's perfectly okay. These type of conditions, as soon as you identify that, just close the charts. I'm only sitting here reading it just for fun, honestly. But if you clearly can identify that, okay, I can make a case for both sides. Things are decoupled, meaning that dollar's moving one way and NQ and Dow are moving the other way. There's sell side above us, buy side above us, sell side beneath us. It's very problematic. And as soon as you can identify that, just get off the charts. Go do something else in your life. And I know it was very, very difficult for me to even understand, and sometimes still is, because these things are very much like Medusa. These charts will suck you into it, and ICT says it's very much like ink blots. If you want to make something out of it, you're going to make something out of it. But as a disciplined analyst, you need to know when things are not in your favor and when to just simply turn off the charts and go do something else with your life. So you can see in here, we have a lot of sell side beneath us, even on a 1-minute time frame. Sell side here, buy side there. So I wouldn't touch this. I wouldn't do anything with this unless we took out buy side or we broke beneath the BISI in here and broke beneath the bullish breaker in here. If we are somewhere in this region down here and there was a setup that presented itself 5 to 10 handles to move into the sell side, I would consider it, but nothing in here is signaling me to do anything. I'm just reading the chat really quick. HRC, yeah, I mean that's simply time and experience. I know that sucks to say whenever I say that to people. They're like, well, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now, so it's a lot of forging of pain, and you don't need the pain necessarily, but if you're somebody like me, I'm very, very hard-headed and stubborn at times, and the only way to get it through me is simply pain, unfortunately. What I would recommend, and it's the reason why I actually like tape reading live and even executing live, is I'm hearing myself talk, and it's helping me be the analyst rather than be the gambler. Because sometimes you'll catch yourself where you're really not in the driver's seat anymore, and the gambler's in the driver's seat. Watch for certain patterns within yourself. Map your patterns. So if you find yourself FOMOing, if you find yourself tilting, there's certain patterns that play out that you're not really recognizing. And if you can break that pattern before it takes over, that's one way to help. So we climbed above the Sibian here. It's going to be acting as an inversion level now. Like I said, was there anything in here signaling us to go long? No. Anything in here to signal us to go short? No. It's just 50-50. You're basically at the slot machine right now, and if you pick a side, then and if you won, in my opinion, you got lucky. Khalif, yeah, I didn't plan on doing it, but I kind of had the intuition to do it. I mean, I've just been seeing a lot of things on Twitter and YouTube where a lot of things have been taught incorrectly, and I'd like to get out there and just show the way I trade, and hopefully it can help some people. Mando, you have to buy the CME data package. Just because TradingView Pro, that doesn't mean you have to go over and buy it. There's going to be a little D, like delayed. If you click on that, it's going to tell you what packages to buy. It's CME. So it's going to be like $4 a month to get live data on ES, futures contracts. If you don't want to pay for that, you can use indices, US 500, US 30, US 100. But for $4, I would recommend just buying the futures contract, live data. Small liquidity void in here, so there's no trading really done. I guess you call that a volume bounce. I'm sorry. There's a little wick in here. So dollar did take out buy side, but I just don't. I don't know. And it's perfectly okay to say that, because I don't know. If you ever catch yourself saying that through time and experience, where you're saying, yeah, I just simply don't know. It just simply means to me to turn off the charts and walk away and do something else. Potentially, the PM session could provide something. But with everything that's in play this week, you have to be very, very careful. Tomorrow is typically problematic with FOMC. FOMC, about 30 minutes after that plays out, it can provide something. So we have this inversion level here. I'm going to take this away. And if you look, there's a small fair value gap in here. So it would need to respect this if we were going to see higher prices. And these type of days is where I would burn myself because at one point you're going long, and then you see shorts, and then you see longs, and then you see shorts, and that's just where overtrading will get you. And you're going to dig yourself a hole very, very quickly if you are not disciplined. And people ask about discipline. It's not necessarily discipline that's your issue. It's the underlying flaws and false illusions and biases that are in the other emotions you're not looking at. So, in tilt and greed and fear, there's a lot of false illusions and biases you have to uncover and come to a resolution with. That may not make a lot of sense, but if you read the book, The Mental Game of Trading, it will really, really help you. That's something I highly recommend. If you do anything, get started on trading psychology, because if that's one thing I could go back in time, is I would tell myself to immediately start there, and work with that and work on money management. Because if you get those two down, it's going to help your trading far more than being a very skilled in technicals. You could be very skilled in technicals but not have it all together behind the scenes. So the watermark here, are you talking about this one? Reduce this link so it's kind of like yours. I'll just show you the settings. I have no idea. So that's what it looks like. So dollars printing higher. Completely disrespected that. Didn't quite, maybe met the high there. Let me see. 4195.25, 41.9. So technically that's an IOFED moving into that premium SIBI in there. I'm still going to leave this SIBI as a inversion level. So very, very choppy PA today. It's something you want to put away in your journals. Screenshot these type of days, screenshot how you felt, screenshot or at least put down what you were doing in these times and what you were thinking during that process. All of last year throughout, majority of it, just by myself, I was recording myself, and I was recording during the trades, before the trades, after the trades, how I was feeling, what my thought process was, because then I'd go back in time and see what I was really thinking and what I was doing during that time period. If you're not journaling, or you think it's not productive, trust me, it's the number one thing you could do to help your trading, because you're going to learn so much through it. Do you see how somebody could have went short in here, and now it's moving against them? Somebody could be going long, moved against them. It's just very, very muddy. It's not something I want to be a part of at all. Yeah, it is a bank holiday, but typically with bank holidays, you're not even seeing this much volatility. It's very slow, very, very slow. So it's a bit odd for me. How often am I doing these lives? I might do them every single day, to be honest with you, unless I'm taking a day off or I don't see anything. I'm not going to be trading every single day. FYI, I'll tape read some days, and then some days I'll do executions in front of you. You just have to see. What is a SIBI? A SIBI is a sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency. So in here, that's a SIBI. The fact that we climbed above it now becomes an inversion for value gap. It's different than a balanced price range. SIBI and BISI, this is a BISI in here, buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency. For value gap, if you want to keep it simple. 9:45. Say 8:45. Correct, Mando. But there's the reason that they're labeled that buy side imbalance, sell side inefficiency, or sell side imbalance, buy side inefficiency is the look at the words. Um, if it has buy side imbalance, then it needs to be redelivered with buy side. Same thing with sell side. If it has an imbalance, it needs to be redelivered with sell side. Why is this not a BPR? I guess in a sense, when this climbed underneath it was a BPR, but it's the reason why I'm doing these live streams. Let me turn off these comments real quick. So we're displacing higher. Took out the buy side there at 41.98. Am I upset or mad? Did we miss anything? No, there's nothing in here to signal us to go long. So now that the buy side has been met, NQ is still lagging behind it. Dow's really printing higher. So I'm scrolling out to a higher time frame. The fact that we met a higher time frame draw on liquidity. I want to see what price looks like and what it wants to do. Because our overall narrative is bullish, right? We talked about this yesterday, how we want to see higher prices in ES, we want to see lower prices in dollar. So, excuse me. I want to see from here, do we just continue higher? The next draw on liquidity for me, all that I can see on a higher time frame perspective would be actually this high here at 42.05. We got about 13 minutes until the 10 o'clock hour for me, which would be 11 o'clock hour New York local central time. FYI, yes, this is to my time, central time, so please don't get it confused. So we took out that draw on liquidity. We're going to see if we can move up into 42.05. Dollar's still printing higher. So we use that BISI bullish breaker in here, send price higher. Regardless, even if you were looking at a 5-minute or 15-minute time frame perspective, it's not something I'd want to sit through. If anything, before this happened, when price dropped down into it, you could have looked for longs. It's still very just muddy price action to me personally. So since we took out buy side multiple times now, do we see a displacement lower? I don't really suspect that. I want to see if NQ starts moving in tandem with ES and Dow. NQ looks awful. I would not want to be a part of that today. Dow was okay. Dollar index, if you look at your 5-minute time frame, there's a bullish order block resting at 101.999. Mark that out. I want to see if that respects price. Three, The Wizard, The Mental Game of Trading. It's by Jared Tindler. So since we took out buy side, if we had a rapid displacement lower, then I would be looking at the sell side resting in here at 41.87, coupled with the fact that Dow is not, or NQ is not wanting to move higher, which is also bearish SMT as well, coupled with dollar potentially going to print higher here. I'm probably going to sit here for about another, we'll see, maybe 15 more minutes. So we have a small, you can carry out this old Sibi as your inversion level. Okay, so price drop down into that. See if that holds price to move higher. And we'd be looking for 42.05 if we were truly bullish. Looks like NQ's picking up here. Let's see if that really starts moving in sync with Dow and ES. And again, nothing in here would signal me to really go long. It's perfectly okay to just read price, quote unquote, miss a move. There's plenty of times as an analyst where you'll get draws on liquidities correct, but there's just simply no entries. And it will happen to you over and over and over again. It's completely normal. What is the correlation between ES and DXY? DXY typically will move opposite to ES and the other future contracts. So you want to see dollar moving lower if you want to see higher prices in ES. If you see higher prices in dollar, you want to see lower prices in ES. Can we expect more volatility in the PM session? Possibly. Like I said, the economic calendar and today with a bank holiday, it creates a lot of problematic things for me. I'd rather just be done for the day. So the dollar's respecting that bullish order block on the 5-minute time frame. Does it want to continue to move higher into the buy side? I'm curious to see. Yeah, I mean, today they're moving opposite to each other, which has been happening a lot. It's very, very fickle price action, and it's something you have to be very, very careful. This is not something that's good price action. I haven't been trading for a long time. Unfortunately, you don't know what good, clean, low resistance liquidity runs look like, and you don't know what something that is high probability looks like. We will move into that eventually, and the reason that we're inside of this kind of stage is due to a higher time frame macro scale. I've talked about this on the daily, in the weekly, and even geopolitical events. There's a lot of things in play that you have to be very, very careful of price right now and respect the risk that's involved. You can't be in here trying to be an all-star. You just have to get your handles and move to the side. So I'm going to full screen this real quick just so I can mark out some other levels. Do take note, your RTH gap, if you extend that out in time, we moved back down into that and use that as support. So the RTH gap acts very much like the new week opening gap and a new day opening gap. And it's just day to day. You don't extend that each day throughout the week. If you don't know what that is, toggle electronic trading hours to regular trading hours. If you go to regular trading hours, there's going to be a gap in price. And actually, I mistakenly, it's going to be this entire gap. And you can use that as a draw on liquidity if you're early in the morning and you can't really get a feel for price. If there's a gap above or below price, majority of the time it will seek to fill that in. Yeah, so we have about 3 minutes till my 10 o'clock hour. It's typically when I hang things up, unless something hasn't been playing out or has. I usually hang it up, and then we have lunch hour, and then it comes PM session. I typically don't trade PM session unless something, is very clear to me. Majority of the time, all my work is done in the AM session. So we took out buy side liquidity here. Just annotate that. We have buy side here at 4,225, and then the high that I was looking at as well over here, resting at 42.05. So to me, that would be the next draw on liquidity. If price continues to be bullish, it would be 42.05. Actually, I'm just going to do this. Go out to a higher time frame, kind of regain where we're at, what we're doing. So everything's still moving with the original bias and narrative that we had in mind from the beginning of the week. It's just entries are not there. And you're going to see that over time in your career that there's a lot of draws on liquidity and things that you're looking for. They're just simply not met with entries, and it's perfectly okay. Just annotate and show that you were correct in your analysis, and it's perfectly okay. So I'm going to move back here. Just scrubbing through all the time frames. A couple of weeks ago, price looked exactly like this on one of ICT's live streams where we had a breaker missing here inside of a discount. So relative from the stealing range low to that high there, this moves into a discount. Right? Anything beneath equilibrium, that's a discount. So if you want to be long, you want to be buying inside of a discount. I'm not saying that anybody should have been buying in here. To me, it's very muddy. I don't want to wait. I'm very much time oriented, and I care about speed. I care about my mental capital. If you were to go long in here and target even above that high, even though it looks like a lot of movement, it's only 10 handles. It's nothing significant. Okay. But I care about the time. If you were to enter into here, just to reach above that high for 10 handles took about an hour. I'm personally, I don't want to wait for that. And if you haven't been trading long enough, you just kind of been in these conditions, it feels normal to you. But this is not normal. You should not want to be sitting in trades for 5 handles, 10 handles for an hour. It's not normal. In good conditions, 5 handles can run in a minute. And those are the type of conditions that I like because your work is done for you very, very quickly. And you're not spending a lot of mental capital. Every time you place a trade, you're spending a token of your mental capital. And if you keep spending that mental capital, it's going to wear thin, and that's where all your demons come out. That's where all your flaws come out, and it's where you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And that's why if you just pay attention to taking high probability trades, taking those low resistance liquidity runs where you're in and out very quickly, you're not stressing over trades, you're going to find yourself being a lot more calm and being able to be more profitable over time. NQ is moving in sync now. It's got above its high. There's nothing in here that I personally like. It's all high resistance, very slow, very lethargic. Even though we're able to annotate where price was going, even when we were sitting in here, it was 50-50, right? So in hindsight, yeah, we moved above the buy side, but in the moment, in that time, it was 50-50. There's nothing in here that was signaling us to really go long or short. So I think that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll probably be doing these throughout the week. I plan on doing one tomorrow and probably throughout the rest of the week. If you haven't already, go to my Twitter. It's _CJ Trades. Go ahead and give me a follow. Subscribe to the YouTube. I also have a Telegram as well. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter. So go ahead and give that because I talk in there a lot as well. And I appreciate all you guys. Until next time, good luck and good trading, everybody. Be safe.